Well, welcome to the ninth in a series of political candidate forums in advance of the August 23rd primary election. This forum, a cooperative production of the League of Women Voters of Tallahassee, the Tallahassee Democrat, and WFSU Public Media. Our candidates today are running for the Leon County School Board District 4. I'm Tom Flanagan from WFSU Public Media. I'm joined by William Hatfield from the Tallahassee Democrat and Trish Neely from the League of Women Voters of Tallahassee. We're going to be questioning the candidates on various topics. So let's take a glance at the ground rules and then we'll go on and meet the candidates.
The candidates for Leon County School Board District 4, sitting left to right, are Laurie Cox, Susan Hodges, and Alex Stemle. For those of us watching on social media, please hit the share button and help all your friends see today's discussion as well. Here is how the forums are going to work. We will rotate which candidates get to answer first, so everyone will have a chance to get the first crack at questions. We have a lot of questions, so we're going to ask the candidates to keep your answers to about 60 seconds, sometimes shorter for follow-ups. We'll keep time, and we will ding a bell when your time is up, and it will sound like this. Well done. You don't have to come to a dead stop at that point, but please finish your sentence, and we're going to move on. In the middle of the forum, we will have our license and trademark lightning round when we ask you to keep your answers to just one sentence. At the end of the forum, we will give you 90 seconds to make the case directly to voters and share your website or any other important information.
And for those of you who are watching on Facebook and you have questions for our candidates, go ahead and type them into the comments and we will get to as many as we possibly can. Time is very limited, so you can improve your chances of your question being asked if you keep it brief and please keep it polite. Make it a question that is applicable to all three of our candidates. So candidates, any questions before we get started? Okay, let's go ahead.
All righty. Thank you, Trish Neely. And let's kick it off with this query for each one of you. And we will go left to right, if we could do that. What's the number one problem in our school system and District 4, and how specifically would you address it? And let's start with you, Laurie Cox.
Yeah, so we do have some issues in our county. We also do a lot of great things. We do a lot of things right. I think after COVID, post-COVID, we are seeing a lot of challenges, not just in Leon County, but around the state, around the world, actually. But that has brought to light some behavioral issues, some learning losses that definitely need to be addressed. And I think one of the ways that we can combat that is by transparency and communication. When we open the lines of communication to all of our stakeholders, teachers feel like they have an input, parents have an input, administration, support staff, then we can start to address these issues that we've seen really come to light.
Thank you. Susan Hodges, same question, please.
Not being in the actual school itself, but knowing some of the things that are going on, I would say that the Guardian program needs to be improved upon, because I believe the safety of the children, of our children, needs to come first. And we need to make sure that we improve on that so that if anything happens, they are completely protected.
Okay, Alex Stemle, your turn.
Yeah, I think, Tom, the number one priority in our school district is student learning and engagement in our classrooms. When our kids left for the pandemic and returned, they came back very different. Some of them were confused and angry. We experienced a lot of learning loss, and I think that it's important that we notice the trauma that they also have. And so for me, student learning and engagement is the number one priority. And the way that we improve that is through opening up communication channels from the top to the bottom and connecting the board priorities with what's going on in our classrooms and the needs that are in our classes.
Okay, folks, that being said, we have a few follow-ups here, and we'll switch back across the front if we could, please. The state recently released grades for districts and schools around the state. What are one or two things that kind of jumped out at you, and a 30-second response on that? And Susan Hodges, we can start with you on that.
I noticed that a lot of the C grade schools have improved. Some of the grades have actually come up. I think what we need to do is focus on the state testing and make sure that we are teaching the children what the state's requirements are so that they can bring their grades up.
Okay, Laurie Cox, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think all of us in the education field in Leon County were very excited about some of the improvements that we saw in for the last several years. Bond in particular, great improvement there. I know the principal there very well. But we never want to sit on our laurels either, and we want to continue to target those students that are still struggling and come up with individual plans and procedures for them to really bring those grades up. So it's great, but we still have a lot of work to do. We never want to sit on that.
Okay, Alex.
Yeah, Tom, one of the interesting things is there are 14 schools that zone into District 4, so it's one of the biggest responsibilities, I think, on the school board. And so we had a lot of successes. You saw the only 2 secondary schools, Childs and Deer Lake, maintain their A. We had Robb Middle School that was very close, 2 points away from getting a B. And then we had schools that struggled. And so we need to get into those schools. We need to figure out what worked, what didn't work. We need to make sure that we identify the learning needs and the gaps and that we focus our energy on those things. One of the things that we need to remember is that there's a lot of students in District 4 that need support.
Well, as a follow-up to that analysis, we can start with you and then go back here. What's the biggest thing to your way of thinking that makes District 4 unique?
Well, I think it's the wide range of schools and communities that you have. You have some schools that are very community oriented. They're within a community. They have several they're family houses. And then you have communities where you have college students that are mixed into the housing. And so it's very difficult for some of those schools to create a community environment. And so we have to do everything we can from the school district and the school board level to help those schools succeed and create that environment we know that's so important for success.
Okay, Laurie Cox, what do you think?
Yeah, so we do have a wide spectrum. That's one thing that makes District 4 so unique. And you've got schools, almost all the way to Georgia that we serve students all the way, almost to Georgia and all the way to Gadsden County on the west side. And so there are communities that, like Alex was saying, very tight-knit community schools, and they feed from one to the next, go to school together for many years. And then you have some schools that we've got some challenges, and we need to really work with our administration and support staff at those schools and teachers.
Okay, and Susan Hodges.
So I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage because I'm not actually in the school system. I haven't been a teacher, but I have looked at the district and I have gotten to know where the district is. And I would like to venture out and visit some of the schools and things like that. But I have to say that I don't know the schools very well yet, and I'm still learning.
Okay, well, let's have one last follow-up on this before we move on to another topic here. District 4, of course, as all 3 of you have referenced, covers a large area of Leon County from the border with Georgia, and that includes one of the most affluent zip codes in the whole area, and then extends into 32304, which has been widely publicized as being one of the poorest zip codes in the entire state of Florida. So how would you make sure to represent your district equitably given that wide variation in students and families and the entire environment there? Alex Stemle.
Yeah, I think it's important that the school board members active, that they're present, that they're listening, that they return phone calls. I think that going to school events is important, being there for their graduations and their science nights and their plays. Those are things that matter to kids and to families, and I think that gives a chance for our constituents to meet us and see us and bring us the challenges that they have. I think it's important when there's a phone call made to the district and to our offices that they get a return phone call back. And so I think just being active and available is one huge part, and we don't need to overthink it.
Okay, Susan Hodges.
I would like to know what causes the poorest part to be poor. I want to address that and find out how we can improve the lifestyle, the area, and try to bring them a little bit more together. And I think that I agree with everything Alex said. I think that we should be able to be as available as we possibly can to help improve. And I think that we should put some programs and some systems in place to help the less fortunate and the poorer communities to be able to meet the same goals.
Okay, thank you. And Laurie Cox will
Yes.
wind up with you.
I think that's one thing I am most excited about. Many of you know I just retired from teaching, so I am so excited to get to go into the schools. And as a physical education coordinator for the last 13 years, before COVID, one of the highlights was going to visit these schools. And I know I have great relationships with the PE teachers at every school and some of the other teachers at every school already. I think it's so important to get involved in those communities, to show up at their games and graduations, activities, and school functions, things like that.
Thank you.
All right, changing gears a little bit. Governor DeSantis is getting more involved in local school board races. School board candidates across the state were recently sent the DeSantis Education Agenda Survey. The survey gauges candidates' stances on face masks, charter schools, critical race theory, and more, and could be a litmus test for any school board candidate who wants the governor's endorsement. I believe he just put out endorsements, although I didn't see any from Leon County just yet. Did you receive the survey? What are your thoughts on it, and what's your level of support for the governor's education agenda? You have 1 minute to answer this question. We're starting with you, Laurie Cox.
All right, and yes, I did receive the survey. And I did fill it out, and there were some, interesting questions. And as a governor, he has every right to kind of get a litmus test for what's going on. Education has become very important to him. And I really believe if anybody looked at his agenda, he had 10 steps, I think. And I think most people would agree we want our education system to be the best in the state of Florida. We want to lead the nation. And in Leon County, we certainly want to do that. So, some of his top priorities are just parental involvement and just making sure we get back to educating our students. So I did receive it, and maybe I don't agree with all the rhetoric on some things that he says, but I would support. As a governor, he's the elected one to lead our state. So.
And you will accept an endorsement if it comes down from him?
If he were to do that, I would accept anybody's endorsement if they agree with my platform. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Susan Hodges, same question.
I have, I have not received it yet. It may have gone into my junk folder, so I need to look. But I am very familiar with what Governor what Governor DeSantis stands for. And I completely stand by him. I agree with everything I've heard him say. I am very right-wing conservative. I do actually support everything that he has put forth, and I hope that that in the future we can work together. I would actually accept his endorsement. I would be proud to.
Thank you. Alex Stemle.
Yeah, I did not receive the survey, William, but I think what's important here is that it's everybody's responsibility to support our schools and our educational community here in Leon County. He spoke the other day and he stated how he has 2 kids who he wanted to see, let's get back to learning in the classroom and take the agendas and the mandates out. And so I'm looking forward to working with the governor on those things and helping our students get back to learning. I'm supported and endorsed by the LCTA, the teachers. I'm supported by the support educational professionals here in Leon County, the LESPA, and I'm also supported by the firefighters and the firefighters and the paramedics here in Leon County. And so we value those endorsements, and we look forward to picking up a few more here.
Excellent. And you would accept the governor's endorsement if it came down?
Yeah, if it came down to it,
okay.
Sure.
So staying with this a little bit, the Moms for Liberty, a conservative parents group, has become a force in Tallahassee and around the state and nation. Have you received or will you seek their formal or informal endorsement? Why or why not? And we will start with you, Susan Hodges.
I also stand with the Moms for Liberty. I agree with everything that they have fought for, and I would accept an endorsement from them, yes.
Okay, thank you. Alex Stemle.
To be honest with you, William, we've been out meeting voters. We've been on doorsteps and we've had several events. And so I've had a chance to really look at what the Moms for Liberty stands for. They have reached out to me. We have had some discussions. My concern is that the chair of that organization is actively supporting one of the candidates here in the public forum. And so I think it's important that if we have organizations like this in our community, that they come from a place that's unbiased. And so I think that my candidacy will represent everybody. I think we all have different viewpoints and different perspectives, and I think it's important that we listen to everybody.
Okay. And Laurie Cox.
Yes, I have not received their endorsement. And again, anyone that agrees with my platform, I would welcome their endorsement. I do have friends on all spectrums, all sides of the aisle. I've gotten support from all kinds of people as well, a lot of teachers and community people as well. I do, as a full disclosure, I have friends that are in Moms for Liberty, but I also have friends that do not align themselves with them. So I would, again, if they were to endorse me, if they agreed with my platform, I would accept anybody's endorsement.
So staying with you really quickly, I mean, what's one part of their agenda that you agree with and one part of their agenda you disagree with?
Well, look, we as educators, we should welcome parental involvement. It is not a secret, and it's been well known for a long time, that parental involvement is a key to anybody's success. And we've been trying to get parents involved for years and years. And I've been fortunate to work at some schools with amazing parental involvement, and it makes such a difference. So to me, one of their main things is that parents are finding out what's going on in the classroom, which I think every parent has a right to know what's going on in their classroom. So I would support that.
One thing you disagree with? Anything?
I think sometimes the rhetoric that they maybe espouse or that people think that they espouse, I think that's where open communication, where I think I have a real gift in building relationships with people, and I really think open communication is a key to making sure that we bring along both people on both sides.
Okay. Susan Hodges, same question.
I agree with that the parental right is a very important thing. We need to invite the parents back into the classroom. I believe that they need to be extremely involved. I believe that we need to work on curriculum together, that the parents should have a say in the curriculum. And I also agree with them about the LGBTQ, and that the guideline that they instated should be readdressed.
Thank you. Alex Stanley?
Yeah, William, as a classroom teacher, a dean of students, an athletic director, and now currently an assistant principal, teaching is hard. And so it's very difficult when we have organizations that want us to raise their agendas up the flagpole. And so I think as educators and as a school board member, it's very important that we protect our schools. Parents need a voice, and that's something that we ran in 2020, and that was our campaign motto, as a voice for parents in classrooms. And so, what concerns me is that there are more and more outside organizations trying to run their agendas up our flagpoles, and that's harder and harder for us to do our job.
All right, thank you.
So the COVID pandemic has really impacted all of our school systems across the nation. What's the one thing that our district did absolutely right, and one thing our district did wrong? And you've got 1 minute, and Alex Stemle, I'd like to start with you.
Yeah, I think keeping our schools open was important. I think allowing the school administrators to create environments where teachers could be protected and take their mask off and teach kids directly, face to face, but 10 feet apart. I think that was important for our schools, and I think you'll see a direct reflection in the school scores based on the amount of students that were in front of teachers. I think that's important. One of the things that I think that we struggled with was we implemented some technology immediately into the schools. We weren't really sure how those Chromebooks were going to affect learning, how we could implement the positives and the negatives. And so I think that we're seeing a lot of educational divide and more of a gap created from those technologies. And so we got to work with everybody to make sure they're implemented in a way that's effective and efficient for our classrooms.
Thank you. Laurie Cox, same question, please.
Yes, COVID has wreaked havoc on us and everyone else. And I saw firsthand the struggle that my husband was involved in helping those protocols come to fruition with the help of administrators, with the Department of Health, with the CDC guidelines. And we did a great job in meeting the needs, I think, of our students and teachers. Keeping our schools open was huge. Also, offering hybrid solution versus in-person, hybrid, or digital. But you're right, the digital did create some issues in hindsight that we looked at now that, maybe we could have done that a little bit better.
Okay, thank you. Susan Hughes?
I have a friend who is a teacher, and so I can't speak to my experience because I'm not. But I heard stories from her that when they were doing the hybrid, that a lot of the children were slacking, and they were told, just pass them. And I believe that was a huge mistake, because as you can see, there are problems from it now. And I think reestablishing the authority of the school district, the school itself, and getting the children back into their homework and their curriculum is an issue. So that's pretty much what I've learned from it.
Okay, thank you. And I have a follow-up.
Oh, I don't think you get to go.
Yeah. I'm
Okay,
first. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
no worries. My bad.
That's okay. Follow-up, and Susan Hodges, I'm gonna stick with you here to start. During some of the worst stretches of the pandemic, Leon County School District often found itself at odds with the governor and also with our state lawmakers. What would have been your advice to the superintendent during those times? And 30 seconds, please.
I would have said keep the schools open, which I understand was done, and I would have said no masks. I believe that the masks don't work. I believe that that was something that should not have been instituted. But that's really all that I could say about it, because I completely agreed with everything that Ron DeSantis did. And I said his name right this time.
Okay, thank you. Alex Stemle.
Yeah, my advice would be don't be the wedge that becomes the part of our community that divides. I mean, I think that when we use our platform to go after the governor and to go after portions of our community that think differently and have different perspectives than us, it's a very dangerous thing. I think the flip-flopping of the mask definitely created a narrative that was not healthy for us as we entered into the school year right there at the beginning. And so I look forward to working with the governor, the legislators, the superintendent, everybody from the top down to improve our schools. I think that's important, and it's time for us to get back to that.
And Laurie Cox.
Yes, so we did find ourselves at odds with the governor and the commissioner of education. And as a teacher and as a coach, I want everyone on the same team. So it would have been, in hindsight, I think I would have advised him to just go with the governor, and he was the elected official to make the law and to follow the law at that point.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, earlier this week, the Florida Education Association, FEA, released a report indicating that statewide, Florida is in deficit by about 9,500 teachers and support staff. And certainly we have seen a deficit of numerical teachers here in Leon County as well. So what concrete steps do you think should be taken to attract and retain highly qualified teachers, given all the current challenges? 1 minute to respond. Alex Stemle, let's start with you.
Yeah, the first thing is I think that we got to increase their pay. That's number one. I think that we got to bring respect back to the profession. Teaching needs to be joyful. Teachers need to have the autonomy to get to their kids. And I also think that there's we need to bring the professionalism back. And what I mean that is, when we have doctors and lawyers, they don't just see patients and just see clients. They have a chance to go back and work with the colleagues. They have a chance to look at their files and to develop the best game plans. And so we have to make sure that the teachers have the time to do that. Right now, you see teachers, they teach all day and they do this at home, and that's usually on their own time. And so we got to find creative, out-of-the-box solutions that allow teachers to return to the joyful teaching and the autonomy that they need to reach our students.
Okay, thank you very much. Susan Hodges.
Not to write on his answer, but I do agree with everything he said. I also believe that the teachers do need to be paid more. I believe that they need to be able to support themselves without having to worry about where their next meal is going to come from because they're not getting paid enough. I also believe that they need to have a budget for supplies, so it's not coming out of their own pocket. And I do believe that the teachers do need to find their joy back for teaching because some of them are just burnt out. And I believe that we need to put systems and programs in place to help them find that joy.
Thank you. Laurie Cox.
Yes, and I think teacher morale has become a real issue in the last, especially post-COVID. And I talk with teachers all over the state. I work on a state board with teachers from around the state. And that is the million-dollar question. If we had the answer to that, we would all be rich, how to keep and retain quality teachers. But I think treating them as professionals, increasing their pay, and just getting back to educating our students and trying to keep all the peripheral stuff out of our classrooms and get back to the joy of teaching. I spent 36 years teaching, and I loved every day of it. And I would love to create that enthusiasm and that motivation for other students or other teachers as well.
Okay, some breaking news prompts our next follow-up here. There is a new state program that is recruiting military veterans to teach in our public schools, whether or not they have an actual teaching certificate and the training that leads up to that. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that. And Susan Hodges, if we could start with you, please. What do you think?
I would be greatly in favor of that. I believe that the veterans have a lot to offer, and they have done their job in protecting us in the country for wherever they were stationed. And I believe that they would have a lot to offer our children. And I believe that would be a great program. I would completely support it.
But just a clarification there. So you think that, not having a certificate is not an impediment to their performance in the classroom potentially?
Well, I don't think that you should just let anyone in. I believe there needs to be a background check. I mean, when you get a job and you work towards a goal, you don't always have to have a degree to meet that job. But if that's something that we need, we can always have them, get the certificate they need.
Okay, thank you. Laurie Cox, what do you think?
Yes, so I was around when even our Department of Education made it to when we had teacher shortages before, where anyone that had a college degree could apply and get a teaching certificate. And I remember us who have gone through teacher ed programs, and we have seen some great teachers come as a result of that, and then some not so good that did not go through an internship and the proper, curriculum and pedagogy type things. But my dad was a veteran, and I 100% support our military. I think that great mentors can come from that program. So I'd be interested to learn more about that.
Okay, Alex Stemle.
Yeah, 100% support the military coming in and helping us out. I think, Tom, one of the important things is they still have to meet the certification test. That's not something that's waived there. I would like to see our county do some workforce development programs that target, teachers and educators and future educators. When kids leave our 12th grade here in Leon County, they should be able to go and work as maybe an aide or an instructional professional that works side by side with the teacher and see if this is really something that they want to do. And so that's a huge problem for us is the teacher shortage. And so any kind of out-of-the-box solutions that we can find that will help our schools, I'm all for it.
Okay, let's stick with you for another
Sure.
30 seconds here. Alex here. Since just about everyone who's involved in the process indicates that more money would be at least a mitigating offset to the problem here, how do we quickly increase teacher pay? How do we go about doing that?
Well, I think we have, upwards of $16 million going out the window for kids that are leaving our school system. We have the advantage. The kids typically come to us first, and then they find other opportunities. And so it's like if you were to drive the car down the road and the gas tank was leaking, you would fix the leak before you put more gas into it. And so I think it's important that we address the root problems of these issues, and that we really understand what it is that makes them up. And they're not going to be easy solutions that are going to happen overnight. And so we need to be patient, but we got to get the teachers the support they need.
Okay, thank you. Susan Hodges, more money, fast.
I think that we need to look at the budget. I think that we need to just do a quick glance of what is leaking, as Alex put it, and put a plug in it and say, okay, this needs to be changed. This needs to be redirected to our teachers. I think that there might be opportunities to improve things if we refocus.
Thank you. And Laurie Cox?
Yes, again, the $1 million question, how do we get more money? So I think just looking at the budget, looking at our superintendent and really coming up with some creative solutions that we'll just have to wait and see. But I agree, it needs to happen. And I'm a yes person. Don't tell me, no, you can't do it. Let's find a way to make it happen. So looking forward to getting in there.
Thank you. Oh, yeah.
All right, and one 15-second follow-up I want to just tack on there. What is the number one reason contributing to a poor morale climate? Number one, and I'll stick with you, Laurie Cox. 15 seconds.
I think teachers they work so hard. Most of them go home to families after they've been teaching all day. They have papers to grade at night. Our ESE teachers that deal with enormous challenges throughout the school day and then go home to their own families. And yeah.
Okay. Susan Hodges.
I would have to say it would be the behavior of the kids. And I've heard a lot of stories of where there's problems with behavior after returning from COVID, from the pandemic. And I think that it can be challenging to try to control your classroom.
Thank you. Alex Stemle.
I think without a doubt, it's open communication channels from the top to the bottom that are unfiltered, they're unbiased, and that, people have the ability to speak out without fear of retaliation or retribution in our district. I think that's important for our school district, and as a school board member, I hope to connect that dot directly from the school classroom to the board.
All right, so lawmakers were quite busy this session in the education sphere. So how should the school board respond to recent legislation restricting discussions about race, gender identity, and sexual orientation in public schools? Obviously, covering a lot of territory there, so I'll give you a lot of time. You got 1:30 if you want to take it, and we will start with you, Susan Hodges.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to repeat the question, please.
Sure. How should the school board respond to recent legislation restricting discussions about race, gender identity, and sexual orientation in public schools?
So is this about the guideline that was introduced? Is that the question?
It's about those race, gender identity, and sexual orientation in public schools.
Okay.
Laws pertaining to those.
My personal opinion, I don't believe the school should be involved in any of that. I don't believe the school should be involved in telling the children that they can be male or female or anything like that. That's not their business. It's up to the parent. And as for race, I'm not really sure what the issues are at the moment. I know that there are some bullying going on, but my understanding was that was more for the guideline issues. And that was why that was put in place. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with any race issues at the moment. So if anyone could enlighten me, that would be great.
Okay, thank you. Alex Stemle.
Yeah, I think our teachers, they teach the Department of Education standards. And I think it's important for our public to know that in my opinion and what I've seen, we don't have kids that are teaching topics that are not age appropriate in our schools here in Leon County. We don't have first graders teaching about gender identity, first grade teachers teaching about gender identity. I think that's important for our public to know. Kids are very creative and they want to get to know their teachers and they want to learn about their teachers. And we got to make sure our teachers have the skills to pivot from those conversations and get back to learning and get back to the core content knowledge. I think it's important that our kids leave our school district prepared adults, that they have the content knowledge and the civic responsibilities to go and lead our future. And so, it's important that we control our narrative as well. As a school board member, that will be one of my priorities. I think that if we don't control our narrative of what's happening in our schools, somebody else is. And so, as I stated before, the flagpole issues are also hard for me to digest as a school administrator. That this makes our job a lot easier. And so keeping those things out of schools is important.
Thank you. Laurie Cox.
Yes, and I have said, and I will say that I don't believe our classrooms should be billboards for personal, social, or political activism. And I've worked with the Department of Education helping to write standards, and I know the process that goes into that. And so we've got standards that our teachers do teach. And I will tell you, no teacher that I've talked to is indoctrinating students necessarily, but we do want to protect against personal biases coming into the classroom, and we want to make sure our teachers are teaching the standards that the Department of Education has put before them. And that's another, we also just want to make sure our teachers are treated as professionals, the professional that they are. Building relationships with students is critical. I've built my career on building relationships with not only teachers, but with students. And that's crucial in the classroom, having a rigorous curriculum, but also building relationships. Those two go hand in hand.
Thank you. Following up here, Alex Stemle, how should schools address topics and conversations around race history? 30 seconds.
Well, I think it's simple, William. They need to stick to the facts. We need to stick to the standards. We need to make sure that kids have a chance to share their perspectives and their opinions on things, that we have a strong debate in class. But we got to get focused on the learning and the content and the standards that are presented from the Department of Education.
Thank you. Laurie Cox.
I agree. Open dialogue in the classroom. And I think a good teacher knows how to create good dialogue within students. But again, it shouldn't be a teacher's opinion that gets divided into there. To me, a classroom should never know where their teacher stands. They should be totally neutral. But I think those are important issues to talk about in our day.
Thank you. Susan Hodges.
I completely agree with both answers, but I also think that we need to look at the curriculum that is being taught to make sure that it is factual and to make sure that we are aware of where the race started, and not race, but the race issues. and where that came from, and we need to have curriculum that speaks the truth on that.
Thank you. Laurie Cox, the school's recent LGBTQ plus guide, which was approved by the school board, most controversial provision is the parental notification part of that. What's your opinion of that provision? Laurie Cox, 30
Yes.
seconds.
Believe me, I lived that. My husband was the one that presented that before the board, and it was amazing to see two very opposite extremes being able to come together to complete a guide. At first, personally, I was not sure that we needed one. I was surprised when I found out that Leon County Schools even had one, but knowing that administrators and teachers, when they're faced with students, that there needed to be some guidance. So I was good with that. Now, the question was the provision for parent notification. Parents should be notified in these situations. And we want to make sure the student is safe, but absolutely parents should be notified.
All right, Susan Hodges.
I believe parents should be notified. I don't believe that what they have stated in the guidelines saying that they had a conversation. I believe that everything about the children needs to be to the parents' awareness. The parents are the ones raising the children. The school is the one that is educating, but there needs to be limits in that education.
All right, Alex Stemle.
Yeah, the parental rights is the law of the land, and so we will follow that. One of the issues that I've come to realize is that our schools don't use our locker rooms anymore since COVID, and so we spent a lot of time discussing this. One of the things that we need to make sure that we do is we don't step on the rights of all to protect some. I would have loved to seen those hundreds of hours of our community put back into literacy gains and how we can address reading and give the teachers a guide on how we can improve reading and learning in our classrooms. A lot of times we just need to be careful with what types of things we focus our efforts on.
Thank you. All right, Susan Hodges. Parents' rights advocates say that parents must reclaim education in the state and that they've been cut off from the decision-making process on issues impacting their children. Do you agree with this statement? And if so, give an example of the kind of decision-making that parents have been cut off of.
I do agree with that statement. And what we were just talking about, the guideline, that is a good example because, from what I understand, the parents have no say in what happens at school. When the children go to school and they say, well, I am uncomfortable in my body, they don't have to tell the parents that they're going through a crisis. They can just say, oh, I talked with them and we just had a chat. And I don't agree with that at all. And I think that needs to be changed.
Thank you. Alex Stemle.
Can you repeat the question again, William?
Sure. Parents' rights advocates say that parents must reclaim education in the state and have been cut off from the decision-making process on issues impacting their children. Do you agree with this statement? And if so, give me an example of what kind of decision-making the parents have been cut off from.
Yeah, I don't think it's just the parents. I think it's the classrooms and the teachers as well. The LGBTQ guide that was out in place prior to our big discussion here did have a clause in it that said, do not call the parents. And we defaulted to not calling the parents. And that default obviously has been changed, and that's important. I think having the ability to stand up, we had several people in our community that had issues with that guide prior to it becoming an issue. And those voices were never heard. And so I think that, parents in particularly, they need to get phone calls back from district leaders if they call and want answers.
Okay. Laurie Cox.
Well, I think COVID has brought to light, especially with online learning, that parents maybe saw some things in curriculums or whatever that they weren't aware of. So, but I do know that with DOE, that the curriculum goes online, that anybody can give input to that kind of thing. But with the LGBTQ guide, I think that was something that parents were not aware of. Anyway, so repeat the question again. Can you? This is a. Yes.
An example of where parents have been cut off from the decision-making process.
Well, and I do think, I think in our district, the LGBTQ guide may have been one that a lot of districts feel like, because in that guide, that was said that they didn't have to notify parents.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. What is your message to teachers who are feeling vilified by recent rhetoric and legislation? Alex Stemle.
Well, my message is to them that as I go on the front porches and I meet our voters, the grandparents and the parents of this community are very, very aware of the impact that the educators make in their kids and their grandkids' lives. And so I would tell them to keep fighting, that help is coming, and that we are going to help reestablish the professionalism that the community has. Teaching is difficult. There's no doubt about that. And so we have to find ways that we can help our teachers in the classroom, relieve some of that burden and work with our community partners to do that.
Thank you. Laurie Cox.
Yes, so teaching is a tough profession. And I think getting back to where teachers feel valued and feel supported from their administrators, from their parents, and everything else is very, very important. And so, can you repeat that question
Sure.
again, too?
Your message to teachers who are feeling vilified.
Thank you.
Yep.
And I think some of the rhetoric has been very divisive. And so working together with everyone, bringing them together and helping teachers feel supported, helping parents feel listened to, opening that line of communication. Because truth plus transparency equals trust. And I think building that transparency and that communication is key.
Thank you. Susan Hodges, same question.
Well, we don't want any of our teachers to feel vilified in any way. But at the same time, you do have our children in your classroom, and we just want to know that we can trust you. And it's not a matter of you're a bad teacher. And I understand the excitement of being able to put together a curriculum and planning and what am I going to teach the children today? I understand that. But we also have to take into consideration the parents and what the parents want.
Thank you.
Okay, Susan Hodges, I'm going to start with you. So one of the schools in the district, Springwood Elementary School, their grade fell from a C to a D this year. If Springwood reports another D next year, the state will implement an external operator and a turnaround plan. How would you help the school raise its grade from a D to a C to prevent that from happening?
I would want to look at the school specifically and look at their curriculum, what they're being taught, how much time they're spending on the subjects, and how we can target a certain curriculum that they are not being taught, and how we can focus on the areas that they're struggling in and why are they struggling in that area. Is there a reason for it? So I would want to do a lot of research into that school and find out what the problem is.
Okay, thank you. Alex Stemle, how would you help the school raise its grade from a D to a C?
Well, I'm going to be there the first day meeting with Ms. Myers to make sure that we have everything that we need at that school. I think it's important that we find time. This takes time to get in front of kids, to get high quality educators in front of kids. And so finding ways to work with our community partners, finding ways to work with parents so that we get the knowledge and the content in front of the kids and give them the chance to practice and practice and practice so that they can become fluent learners. A lot of this hinges on their ability to read. A lot of our state tests are reading tests, even though they may be a science test or a reading test, a civics test, it's a reading test. And so understanding how the early learning and early reading and early literacy impacts us when kids get to our system is critical as well.
Thank you. And Laurie Cox.
And I too, going to visit the school, spending time with the administration, with their staff, really targeting those students because we know that looking at the data, targeting those students, coming up with individual plans for those classrooms and for those students, getting their reading levels up, just working with the whole child is so, so very important, and working with that community.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to change gears here and go to the lightning round. We're going to start, before we get into it full steam, I want to ask you one quick question with a 30-second time frame, and that is, what is one issue we aren't talking enough about in our schools? And we will start with you, Laurie Hodges. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Laurie, I'm mixing up my candidates. Laurie
Yes. Again, I think certainly our school safety is number one on everyone's mind. But another thing that's, I think, not really talked about much anymore because of COVID and all these other distractions we've had, but the importance of physical health, not only with our students, but with our faculty, with administration, because our physical health really transcends into everything else. When kids get that physical activity and get that brain stimulated and making sure their nutrition is in order, Even our meals at school, we've done a good job. But those health and wellness would
Thank
be
you.
a good one.
Susan Hodges.
I was listening to Laurie's answer and my mind went completely blank.
Yes.
But I do believe that security and safety is an issue that we do need to talk about, because I have seen, or I have looked at some of the programs that are in place, and I know that there are some things that need to be improved on in the Guardian program.
Thank you. Alex Stemle.
Yeah, the two ladies mentioned school safety, and that has to be number one. But our schools are very safe, William, very, very safe. And I think that the parents need to know that. Our community needs to know that. I think the number one thing that we're not talking about is our educational model is outdated. It's we still teaching kids in cinder block rooms on age based on how old they are. And we know that kids come to us at different times. They learn things at different ages. And so we have the technology now. We need the flexibility to be able to create environments where we can target learning. And then that way we relieve some of this pressure on the teachers to be able to create engaging environments that really will get to our kids and do the learning that we know is difficult.
Thank you. All right, I think we've made it through all three of you on that, right? Good. Okay. So now we're going to be in our lightning round. And the way the lightning round works is most of these questions are kind of yes or no. I'm looking for a yes, a short answer, and then you get one sentence to kind of explain it. Of course, you guys in the education sphere, you know we don't like too much of a run-on sentence. I'm okay with an and, okay with a because, but let's try. We're going to keep this moving quickly. So we're going to start with you, Susan Hodges. Do you currently, or have you had children in the Leon County school system? And you can name drop the schools from which they have been.
I do not have current children in the Leon County school system, but I do have children that will be growing up into it.
Okay, thank you. Alex Stemle.
Yep, I have two boys. They're at Killarn Lakes. One's going into 4th grade. One is going into 1st grade. Hey, Harlan. Hey, Leo. Daddy's proud of you. I am also a product of Leon County Schools, going to Sealy, Raw, and Leon. I think that's important for the voters to know.
Thank you. Laurie Cox.
Yes, we have one son. I always wanted 4 boys. We got one. He was like 4. But he did go to Roberts and Deer Lake and graduated from Childs. And I also am a product of Leon County Schools, Rudiger, Griffin, and Leon. All
right. Alex Stanley, what's one book every student should read?
I think that there's a series of fish books out there that talk about how you need to find joy in everything that you do, and I think that's important that kids and young adults read that book and understand that life sometimes doesn't give you exactly what you want, but you got to make the best of it.
Okay, Laurie Cox.
There's a book called Night by Wiesel. I don't know if you have read it, but it was a memoir from the Holocaust, and just the depravity of man, but the tenacity and the fight of the human spirit to survive in unspeakable odds.
Thank you. Susan Hodges.
I'm going to go old school and say Tom Sawyer. I mean, you could never get enough of that.
Thank you. Does a rainbow flag ever have a place in our schools? If so, where? Laurie Cox.
No.
Susan Hodges.
No.
Alex Stemle.
No, neither does a Trump flag or a Stemle for School Board or a Black Lives Matter flag. No.
All right. Are you open to metal detectors at our school? Susan Hodges.
Yes.
Okay. Alex Stemle.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with metal detectors, William. When I go to the FSU basketball games, it just feels like I'm walking through a doorway.
Yeah.
Okay. Laurie Cox.
Same. When we go through any Auburn football games, FSU games, metal detectors are used. I don't have a problem.
Okay. Will any of you advocate for metal detectors if elected? Laurie Cox.
I would absolutely listen to our local law enforcement and our school safety and security and have open dialogue with them and whatever they think. Yeah.
Susan Hodges.
Absolutely.
Okay. Alex Stemle.
Yes, but I think we also need to get back to the root cause in their mental health.
Okay. Should a student be disciplined by school administrators for bad behavior caught on social media outside the classroom? Alex Stemle.
That's a tough one. As the dean of students for 8 years, this was definitely a challenge of ours that we had. These issues do come over. I think we need to notify the parents and let them handle off-campus social media issues unless it comes onto our campus.
Laurie Cox.
Yes, when my husband was principal at Childs, dealt with that quite a bit. And unless it bleeds onto the school campus, we do need to notify parents, try to let them solve that.
Okay. Susan Hodges.
I completely agree. I believe if it does bleed onto campus, it needs to be dealt with, but it is basically the parents' responsibility.
The question I am asked most by voters who email me to ask the candidates has little to do with the school board, but it's become a litmus test for them and speaks to our democracy at large. Do you have confidence in the outcome of the 2020 presidential election? Laurie Cox.
Wow. Wow. Do I have confidence in the outcome of the 2020 election? Yes and no.
Yes and no. Can you explain in one sentence?
Yes. Well, I think that it has been uncovered some of the voting discrepancies throughout the nation. So.
Okay. Susan Hodges.
No.
Alex Stemle.
Yes.
Okay. Students walking out of the classrooms for protest. Should that be allowed, or should the student be marked with an unexcused absence? Susan Hodges.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Students walking out of the classroom for protest. Should that be allowed, or should the student be marked an unexcused absence?
That's an interesting question. I guess I would say they would have to be marked absent.
Okay. Alex Stemle.
No walking out during instructional time, William.
Okay. Laurie Cox.
Yep. No walking out during instructional time.
All right. At the midpoint of Rocky Hanna's second term as superintendent, what letter grade would you give him and why? Alex Stemle.
I'd give him a B-. I think the communication is something that we could work on. I think opening up those channels and making sure that we're not the wedge that divides our community is important.
Okay. Laurie Cox.
Tough job. Tough to answer because my husband's an assistant superintendent. And I think he's done some great things, but I also agree that communication could be improved.
Letter grade?
That's tough. He's an elected official, and let the voters decide.
Okay. Susan Hodges.
I don't know a lot about what Rocky Hanna has done, so I'm kind of afraid to answer that question.
How many school board meetings have you attended, and how many have you spoken at, and on what topics? Laurie Cox.
Through the years, I've attended a lot in person. I've watched every one the last several years. I've spoken at several of them throughout the years.
Okay. Susan Hodges.
I have attended 2, I believe.
And did you speak?
No, I did not speak.
Alex Stemle.
Yeah, I've been watching the school board meetings since they were rolling live on TV and called into the workshops. I think over probably the last 10, 12 years, I've watched every single one of them and reviewed the board minutes.
Okay. What is one pledge you would make to voters right now that you will accomplish if elected? Susan Hodges.
Can you repeat the question again?
Sure.
Please?
One pledge you would make to voters right now that you will accomplish if elected.
School safety.
Okay. Alex Stemle.
That I'll be active, involved, present, and I'll vote on all issues.
Thank you. Laurie Cox.
I wish I could give everyone $1 million, but I will be active, I will be involved, and I will listen to everyone that has a concern or anyone that wants to come talk. I love bringing people together.
Single biggest contribution to the Leon County School District or your school? Alex Stemle.
Well, I think that I've demonstrated in several positions throughout my career the ability to bring organizational change. I developed, helped implement the largest public-private partnership in all of our schools here, the CHP Champions Program, partnership between world-class schools and Titus Sports Academy.
Okay. Laurie Cox.
Yes, I, as a physical education coordinator, planning trainings and in-services for all of our PE teachers, building relationships with all those schools, also community partnerships with our local firefighters, EMS, with our bike safety program, TPD.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Susan Hodges.
I have not been able to contribute to the Leon County schools because I haven't been involved with them until now.
Okay.
But what I would like to be able to say is that I want to contribute my dedication and my time.
Thank you. You guys made it through the lightning. Well done. Moves quick. Let's slow it down a little.
Okay.
WFSU.
We will do that, not to a crawl, but a little bit less sprightly than what we had with William a moment ago. You know, the issue of charter schools is certainly one that always is controversial, and the board kind of has a historic track record of voting against their approval, only then to be overruled in many instances by the state. So what's your opinion of charter schools and also school vouchers? Let's make it a little more of an inclusive situation. Laurie Cox, you first.
Yes, well, as a parent, I appreciate the fact that parents should have a choice in the best education for their student, for their child. And, charter schools do provide an opportunity to meet some very diverse needs that, hopefully our public schools will be in competition and be excellent, but charter schools do offer an opportunity for students and for families.
Okay, Alex Stemle.
Yeah, I can support strong and productive charter schools here in our community. Like I said before, the $16.5 million going out the window is something we have to address. We have those kids a lot of times coming to our system first. We have to do a great job of sharing our message. We have to do a better job, for lack of word, customer service, and making sure that our community has exactly what they think that they need and what they need.
Okay, and Susan Hodges.
I do support the vouchers. I believe the parents should have every right to pick what school the children go to.
Okay, got a 30-second here follow-up for everyone. The state has expanded school choice, of course, in recent years, and the district has attributed its expansion and students enrolling in private schools and charters as the primary reason for an $11.5 million budget deficit. So why is the district losing kids to charters and private schools, and can we get those students back? Alex Stemle.
Well, you say 11.5. I think that was an outdated statistic. It's looking more like the $16 million number. I think that we can get our kids back. I think that it's important that we keep them to start with. I think that we have to determine our message. We have to share our message. We have to share the great things that are going on in our schools. And a lot of times we're talking about things that are our struggles, our challenges, and some of those flagpole issues. And so controlling the narrative is a very important thing.
Okay, thank you. Susan Hodges?
I'm going to ask you to repeat the question again.
Sure. The state has expanded school choice in recent years, and the district, even though you're right, that was the old number, $11.5 million deficit, was quoted by district officials as being connected to losing students to charters and private schools. Mm-hmm. So the question then being, how do you get those kids back into the public school district?
I think the school needs to regain the trust of the parents. There's been a lot of the LGBTQ being taught that the parents don't approve of the kids who are straight. They're being talked to about that when the parents don't want them to be talked to. I think that that's an issue why some of the parents are pulling their kids out. And some of the curriculum that is not factual is an issue, and that's another reason why they're being pulled out. And I believe we just need to gain their trust back.
Okay, thank you. Laurie Cox.
We need to offer a quality program, and I think we do a good job in most of our schools in Leon County, and we need to earn the trust back of the community, and I think we can do that.
Okay, let's stick with you, Laurie, on the final follow-up here to start us off. Another 30-second response, if you would. Vouchers for all seems to be an end game for some school choice advocates. So what do you think of that concept, and how can the district compete under such a system, since everyone says competition will make everybody better and more wonderful and all?
Right. So we need to make sure our programs and the offerings that we have at our schools are meeting needs of all of our students across the district. And so when students ask for vouchers, we need to see why are they, what is that school offering or that charter school offering that we're not, and really learn to address those needs. And again, I think addressing the whole child is so very important.
Okay, thank you. Susan Hodges?
I'm so sorry. I'm going to ask you to repeat the question again.
Yeah, the vouchers for all concept here, which has gained an awful lot of traction, among school choice advocates in recent years. So your thoughts about that, and how can the district compete if, the whole playing field is leveled and everyone's getting a voucher? How does the district stay a preeminent attraction for these kids?
I think by offering the basics. They need to go back to the basics and let the parents know, hey, we're going to do our best to make your child a contributing member of society to the best of our ability.
Okay, thank you. Alex Stemle.
Yeah, I don't think the vouchers are a level playing field for everybody, Tom. I think that, one of the things that Leon County Schools does is we serve all kids, regardless of what they come to, what they bring to the table. And I think that's important for our community to know, is that that's a I wouldn't say disadvantage, but that's a challenge that we have that other schools don't. And so I think it's a very dangerous slope that we take on there. I like the competition. I think that we are up for the battle. We have all the assets. We have all the kids. We have the best teachers. And so I think this is definitely a game that we can win.
Thank you.
A 2017 study showed that Leon County schools were among Florida's most segregated. Have we improved on this over the last 5 years, and what more specifically should be done? Laurie Cox, we'll start with you.
Yes, so we are a minority majority district, and what can be a benefit is our community schools. And I think, when our students go to schools in the communities where they live, the churches can be involved, mentors, volunteers in that community, which builds a robust community and education, I believe. Do we have work to do in that regard? Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Susan Hodges.
I'm sad to hear that, and I wish that it was different. But I think that what we can do is work towards educating everyone to realize that we are all the same underneath our skin, and trying to integrate the schools a little bit better.
Okay, and Alex Stemle.
Yeah, I think our schools are extremely segregated, and I think school choice exacerbates the problem. I think all of us believe that we would like our community to be less segregated, but we still continue to make choices in our personal lives that don't help us reach that goal. And so our schools, our churches, our sports teams, they're all very segregated, and we need to work together as a community. This is not something the schools can solve. This is a community-wide issue that we should be part of the equation.
Okay, folks, have a question here from the Urban League. Should the school district expand vocational training at the high school level? And if so, in what ways? 45 seconds to respond. And Susan Hodges, you're first.
I think that they should expand that. And I believe that a hands-on learning is something that is very valuable. It's the way that I learn, and I completely understand how someone in high school can struggle so much because they don't have the hands-on. And I believe getting them involved in like computer training or something like that, letting them learn the ins and outs of programming and getting deeply involved in that, I think that would be a huge benefit for them.
Okay, thank you. Alex Stemle.
Yeah, just make sure I'm specific here. I do support vocational programs going into our high schools. Our kids should leave our school system in the 12th grade with the skills to be able to go into our workforce. What concerns me is that the people that have the big beach houses at the coast are the ones that own the businesses. And so I think having a small business programs is very important, that we teach our kids how to be business owners. And again, like I said before, education. I mean, we are struggling with teachers and finding professionals to get into our classrooms, and finding programs where we can get our kids involved and experienced and at least see what teaching is all about is something that would support our school district and that would help create a synergy that I think is important for us.
Thank you very much, Laurie.
Vocational programs are vital to a community and to allow our students to grow and to become great members of our society. So absolutely, we need to work to improve those and to expand those programs. Lively is a great place, but also, teaching financial literacy is huge. And I'm glad that we have that in our state. But teaching them how to own small businesses. My husband has created a whole niche of a small business. So I think that is so vitally important, and we need to continue to expand those.
All right, y'all made it. It is conclusion time, where you get to offer your closing arguments and speak directly to voters. You can, Alex Stemle, you're going to begin.
All right. Well, first, I want to thank the other candidates for being here. This is not something easy. It's not easy to do. We did this in 2020. We ran against a 3-term incumbent. We got 40% of the vote. We felt that the voice was needed then. We still think it's now. I respect the voters that went for experience there. I am the experienced candidate in this race, and so I look forward to your consideration. I'm the only candidate that's supported by the teachers, the firefighters, the support professionals in our schools, and the paramedics. I'm the only candidate here that has experience at all 3 levels of our school system, elementary, middle, and high school. I'm the only candidate with a master's in business administration and a master's in ed leadership. And I think that, this is not about who you go to church with or who your husband is and how influential he is as assistant superintendent. I think this is about who can be objective when making decisions on our school district and on our school board. You can find our campaign on Facebook at Alex Stemle for School Board. You can also find us at www.alexstemle.com. I think that it's important that we all work together to build an educational community that we can all be proud of. And I look forward to being a new voice and a new perspective for our school board. Thank you.
Thank you. Laurie Cox.
Hey, well, I'm Laurie Cox, and I grew up in Tallahassee. My brother grew up in Tallahassee. Obviously, we all went to public schools. My husband did go to all public schools here in Leon County. His father, Coach Dean Cox, and his mother all taught in Leon County schools their whole career. I also have proven leadership and, involved in student government and different things in high school at TCC. I was student body president when we elected a new president, brought a new president on board. I have proven leadership across the state of Florida. I've been on several statewide boards, worked with the Department of Education in writing curriculums, helped to write a district curriculum here in Leon County. I know teachers at every school in Leon County. I've worked in this district for 33 years, and I think one of the things that I have I can bring to the table is bringing all people together and coming to consensus. And I'm very much a people person. I love getting out into the school and the community. You can find more about me at Laurie Lawson Cox or schoolboard.com.
Thank you. Susan Hodges, you get the last word.
The last word is always the best, right? Well, I am at a disadvantage where I don't have the experience as my other two candidates, and I do respect both of you, and I think that you're very nice and sweet people. But my heart is for the children. My heart is to improve the school system, and my heart is for the Lord and to bring in His word back into the school system, because that's what we're missing. And if you agree with me on that, then we can work together. And my website is susanhodgesforschoolboard.com, and it's the number 4. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Thank you, folks, and appreciation also going to the Tallahassee Democrat, the League of Women Voters of Tallahassee, WFSU Public Media, and the candidates for joining us for this program. You can find a replay of the forum on our YouTube pages, Tallahassee.com and WFSU.org, and the recorded broadcast will be Thursday, July 28th at 11 a.m. on WFSU. That's at 88.9 FM.
And our next live web stream forum will be Tuesday, July the 26th at 1 p.m., and it will be with the 2 candidates for Leon County Judge, Jason L. Jones and Mario R. Theodore.
And you can look for the special election guide from the Tallahassee Democrat with interviews with all the candidates on the ballots, including these candidates. That will be printed and inserted in Sunday, August 7th paper. You can also stay tuned to Tallahassee.com for all the latest election news. Of course, I want to thank those who are watching today, and I always welcome your questions for these forums. Really easy, just email us at news@tallahassee.com. Your neighbors can attest that I will often ask those questions, so please send them in. Thank you to the candidates. Thank you all for watching, and thank you to the amazing crew at WFSU for making this all possible. Have an excellent day.